we really are the first company who's kind of driving this transformation at this scale today, and we're really excited about that.
I found a way to have fun. And it was really important to realize that, you know what? You just have to sit down and just find the good in whatever's happening, no matter how stressful it is.
Never underestimate the power of swag, right? So I'm a big believer of like stickers, jackets, t-shirt, pens. I'm a true believer in the power of marketing. And it's not just external marketing, it's internal marketing as well. I think people want to be part of something that is exciting, that is fun. So you can make transformation boring, or you can make it fun.
If you saw somebody wearing the 5-year swag item around the office, you knew instantly they had been there 5 years and had earned that, after 5 years of working there. So they got progressively nicer, obviously, with every year, what you would get.
Oh, you mean the swag and not the person? I'm just kidding. Day in and day out, just knowing and understanding that the market is always shifting and being open to change.
What does it take to remove friction at the scale of Microsoft?
Well, at least one way is to get rid of the blue screen of death and replace it for the black screen of death.
In this episode, we sit down with Zehra Syeda-Sarwat, Microsoft's global head of CX strategy and insights, and she's leading the transformation that isn't just about customers. Employees and partners are part of it too.
We talk AI, culture change, and why quick wins matter, but not all at once. Zehra shares her 2x2 framework for deciding what to fix first.
She also explains why you can't front load all your quick wins if you want the momentum to last.
Plus the power of swag, golden jackets, stickers, and why making change fun is a legit strategy.
And we dig into measuring intention, a metric that most companies miss, but Microsoft sees as essential to long-term CX success.
It's a deep dive into conviction, connection, and commitment.
All that and more on this episode of The Frictionless Experience.
Let's dive in.
Welcome to The Frictionless Experience, where we lay waste to digital friction. I'm Chuck Moxley.
And I'm Nick Paladino.
Welcome, Zehra.
Thank you, Chuck. Excited to be here.
So tell me about your role at Microsoft and how you ended up in this role.
Yeah, so my role is responsible for driving customer experience transformation across the company. And as you can imagine, it involves quite a few different pieces, including market research, aggregating data, building out the strategy for the next few years, identifying the right priorities, and then igniting execution across the ecosystem. How I ended up here is a very interesting story. Prior to this, I was at Amazon Web Services, and I was working with a wonderful colleague of mine, Angela Chu, who was actually on our customer solutions team. She moved over to Microsoft and pointed me in this direction. So that's how the connection happened.
Let's talk a little bit about the scope and the ambition of Microsoft's transformation journey. What was the first sign that Microsoft needed to rethink how it delivers customer experiences at scale?
Yeah, I mean, customer experience really has been pretty much the core of what we do from the get-go. But ultimately, our ambition is to establish Microsoft as the world leader in customer experience. And, with AI, it was very clear that there is a huge opportunity at the table on how do we completely reimagine customer experiences and not just limited to CX. We had the opportunity to redefine employee experiences, partner experiences, and really bring disruptive journeys to the market. And when I say disruptive, I mean things that have never been done before. We really are the first company who's kind of driving this transformation at this scale today, and we're really excited about that.
That's great. Now, culture change is notoriously hard. What's one expected lever that made a real difference in shifting the mindsets internally?
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft is known to have driven culture change in the past as well. And of course, the credit goes to our incredible leader and CEO, Satya, who really, has built a culture of agility. And what that truly encompasses is, day in and day out, just knowing and understanding that the market is always shifting and being open to change. Change is inevitable. And so I think there is a true desire and acceptance of the fact that, at least within the company and most employees, that we're going to have to reinvent ourselves to keep up with competition, to keep up with customer needs that are ever evolving, and to continue to basically maintain our position as a leader in the market. So, of course, our CEO has obviously kind of carved the path, if you will, on a culture change in the past. So, this is definitely not something new for us as a company. But I think having that foundation of agility and that paradigm shift that our CEO really drove across the company of being willing to reinvent yourself helps. But of course, it doesn't undermine, Chuck, your point that it's hard. It's really hard. And so one of the things that we looked at when we were thinking about what is going to be our customer experience transformation strategy, we really wanted to figure out what are the foundational elements that we should put in place to really drive this shift and a focus on, across customer experience. And so, a couple of things that come to mind include having a very clear data-driven strategy. So what does that really mean? One is having clarity around how does customer experience really drive business outcomes for the company and outcomes for the customer, right? So driving a very clear correlation, causation through our analytics work between business metrics and targets and customer experience metrics really sort of proves the path that, hey, for every dollar that you invest in customer experience, here is the ROI that you can expect. So that's, one of the foundational elements. The other piece definitely would be accountability. How do we ensure that there is clear accountability across the ecosystem when it comes to customer experience? When you have clarity on the ROI, driving some of the accountability changes becomes a bit easier, right? And so one of the things that we've done is we have looked at customer facing roles and literally gone in and looked at role descriptions, responsibilities, and made a few tweaks to ensure that there is a focus on customer experience and that performance can be quantified against those expectations. We went in and we closed the loop on that by making sure that performance management is tied with those changes so that there is very clear accountability between managers and employees that are you actually delivering top-notch customer experience. And there is an intention, as part of our strategy to pretty much extrapolate that and expand on that across, numerous different roles. There is another foundational element, which is around having a very clear and a standardized way of looking at and measuring customer experience. And what I mean by that is, there are 1,001 CX metrics out there, and probably a million ways to calculate each of them. And when we're talking to different audiences, the term CSAT means or might mean something different to every member of the audience. They're thinking about a different way of calculating it versus the other. And so it was really important for us to come up with a framework of what are the right metrics we should go measure. How do we calculate them? What is the definition? And why is it actually important to measure this? So going it back again to how does this really help us accelerate business outcomes, right? So that was another foundational element. And then, of course, there are other pieces like amplification. I'm a true believer in the power of marketing. And it's not just external marketing, it's internal marketing as well. I think people want to be part of something that is exciting, that is fun. So you can make transformation boring or you can make it fun. And that welcomes more people who might be on the fence to embrace the change, to become part of the change. And so we're looking at how do we ignite some internal marketing initiatives to really ensure that we sustain energy, we celebrate wins, we recognize people who are, delivering the right behaviors, so on and so forth.
I like that fun's a part of your core environment there, because I'm always trying to find the fun side of everything. Always. And if you've ever worked with me in a direct fashion, I'm always making some type of like subtle little joke here and there. Chuck knows. And there's always something fun to be had, no matter what, no matter how miserable you are. I actually go back to it within a job. I go back to one of my first jobs, and we were instrumenting benefits administration software for Obamacare back in 2012. The project started before then, but I joined it in 2012. And I've never been in such a chaotic, high velocity environment since then. And I will always remember, even in that environment, I found a way to have fun. And it was really important to realize that, you know what, you just have to sit down and just find the good in whatever's happening, no matter how stressful it is. So I really like that that's a part of the Microsoft culture there, and a deliberate strategy.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Nick. I love that, by the way. And it's not hard to do, is it? I mean, there are a couple of ideas that we were talking about where what if we had things like, so recently we launched a customer experience award, right? And it's really around how do we make sure that folks who are delivering exceptional, differentiated customer experience, and we have anecdotal data or feedback from customers confirming so, how do we make sure that they're recognized and rewarded? And so we went out there and we partnered with our very senior executives and figured out at a company event, how do we ensure that award is handed out as one of the, top tier award, and really kind of create this energy for those award winners. And one of the things we talked about, which is still something that we're kind of debating, little things like golden jackets, like shiny jackets that they then wear all day at the event, like even if it is a multi-day event, like because then people are looking at it, there is, you ignite curiosity, you ignite, oh, like what it like, then people really want to be part of that, right? So it's little things. Never underestimate the power of swag, right? So I'm a big believer of like stickers, jackets, t-shirt, pens, whatever it is, right? Posters, advertising it, like it makes a huge difference and it brings a fun environment.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I always ask the question, what's your favorite swag then? Like what's the best thing you've ever gotten?
I would say stickers. Stickers on your laptop because it tells a story, right? I mean, there are stickers that you can give away at hackathons, stickers for specific events. So there's always a story connected to stickers.
I worked for an agency once. There was actually a book written about the culture. It was such a great firm. And one of the things they did is every anniversary, they had a different swag item. And so if you saw somebody wearing the 5-year swag item around the office, you knew instantly they had been there 5 years and had earned that, after 5 years of working there. So it became they got progressively nicer, obviously, with every year, what you would get. So.
Oh, you mean the swag and not the person? I'm just kidding.
That's a good point. Depends on the person, I suppose.
Or the culture. Who knows?
That's true. That's true. So speaking of, Microsoft is such a huge organization. And so as you came into this role and started looking at this, there must have been 1,000 things you could focus on. What filters or frameworks do you decide to figure out what to fix first?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a two-pronged approach, Chuck. I mean, the number one piece is customer feedback, right? So having a diverse set of listening channels, gathering data at scale. And when I say data, I'm really talking about data that is quantifiable, but also anecdotal data. Having the capability to marry up the two and understand what kind of insight does that really output. And then using those insights to drive that prioritization has been really important. It's definitely something, that entire cycle that I talked about, is something that it's almost like the train is moving and we're putting down the tracks at the same time, right? I mean, with AI transformation, like we've got a lot of the foundations, but now it's a matter of how do we make that better and better? The opportunity on applying AI and machine learning to be able to do that analytics at scale and really define and narrow down what are the top customer pain points, it's huge. And so we're looking at almost like, rethinking our capabilities in this space as well to be able to really ensure that we're looking at the right data. We're looking at, data that can come and, convert into insights as fast as possible, so on and so forth. Once you've got a list of the items or pain points, I'm a big fan of the 2x2 framework, which basically is a 4-quadrant framework, right? And it really focuses on effort and impact. And if you're able to kind of draw all of the customer pain points across that graph, or opportunities, if you will, on where we need to go and transform, what are the changes we need to make. Once you're able to pull that together visually, the key is to focus on areas that are low effort, high impact. Because what you're really trying to do there is almost like, using a mathematical equation to figure out what are the right areas where we can drive change very quickly. So it's about speed and cost, right? So you're able to move quickly. It's going to solve a customer problem, which we know is real. And we're able to do that at a low cost, which is the hypothesis is, of course, effort is really kind of helping you measure and quantify the cost. And it's really that, smaller list of, or a subset of low-hanging fruit items where you can deliver impact and quick wins for the first quarter, the first year, and so on. And then, of course, it's a matter of what are the things within there that we can achieve Q1, Q2, and then kind of prioritizing from there. But to narrow it down, definitely to sum it up, it's customer feedback, and then having some sort of a matrix or a methodology like the 2x2 framework that I talked about to really help you ensure that you're looking at quick wins and then growing from there.
I'd be really interested to hear how you assess not only the impact score, but the effort as well. How do you figure out what is low effort and what is high impact at like a predictive level?
Yeah, and that's where, there is a lot of debate as well. And some of it is pretty black and white. For example, I think effort is pretty clear. Effort is really the investment that you're going to need to make. Now, that could be people, that could be technology, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's a bit easier to quantify that. But I think impact is where there is sometimes it gets more, you have a hypothesis that if we do X, you're going to move the needle on Y. And when it comes to customer experience, sometimes you really need a few years to prove that hypothesis. And what I really mean by that is, customer experience is all about loyalty, retention, so on and so forth. And the hypothesis is that if we improve experience, customers would want to stick with us. They're going to choose us as their preferred business partner. We're going to win the market. New customer acquisition would be faster and easier. Hence, in return, revenue growth, consumption growth, market share growth. But in order to prove that entire flywheel out, it can take a few years. You can look at historical data and then predict what's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. So I think what I'm trying to get to is proving that hypothesis out as far as impact, that if we make change A, it's going to do Y, and hence in the long term, it's actually going to help us deliver revenue growth, et cetera. I think as a principle, there is enough data out there that most companies agree with that as a principle. But then to actually prove that out for smaller opportunities that are quick wins that you want to go after, it's a little more difficult to do. So I think, Nick, what you're probing on is awesome because if I may, what you're trying to get to is how do you build that case and how do you gain that buy-in and how do you drive that momentum and execution? And I think the fundamental element or ingredient of that is that conviction, right? Which is deeply rooted in that principle belief, which is that we believe that improving customer experience is going to help us achieve A, B, and C. It's the right thing to do. And it's going to help our customers reap value from the investments that they're making in Microsoft. Now, of course, in parallel, you have to prove that out with data. But I think without that conviction and belief, especially at the leadership level, it becomes really difficult to ignite execution. When it's really time to go and make the change, then you'll see blockers come up.
Hey Nick, remind me again, how much money can a retailer lose if their site is just 0.1 seconds slower during Black Friday?
Millions. And I'm not exaggerating. We've seen it in the data.
Which is why we've pulled together the 2025 Black Friday Cyber Monday Performance Playbook.
Yep, and that's real tactics from top retailers, includes core web vitals, performance budgets, checkout speed tips, and more.
If you're prepping for Black Friday, you need this. It's free, ungated, and honestly,
could save your holiday revenue.
Download it at bluetriangle.com/ebook. Or we'll put the link in the show notes. You know, you used an interesting word. You said conviction, which I think is really hard for organizations today because what you're talking about is a multi-year commitment to making these improvements. And so often we have quarter objectives and we change our minds so quickly. And oh, now this quarter we're going to go chase that. How do you keep that conviction and that commitment? Because what you're talking about, some of these, even the quick wins may not be quick like in a quarter.
No, totally agree. And I think it's really the 3 C's, right? I mean, it's connection plus conviction is equal to commitment. And what I mean by that is connection is really when, if you're able to establish a mission which people embrace and it becomes their personal mission. And that's where I go back to that is the true power of marketing. And of course, there is a lot more ingredients that go into that. But I do believe in the power of marketing to really kind of convert what you're asking employees to do for it to become organic behavior, something that they actually want to do, something that they pretty much live and breathe, something that is a source of pride for them, right? So it's having that connection with, employees, with partners who are ultimately responsible for delivering customer experience. Now with AI, I think we have an incredible opportunity to really ensure that it is centered in human connection so that when customers are interfacing with it, when they're working with it, it doesn't feel too robotic, right? I think we still have opportunity, obviously, in that space, just like, people, but I think it's getting there. There are improvements we're seeing, but having connection, of course, conviction is the belief, conviction is the confidence, conviction is critical, especially at the leadership level, because you can sense it. When leaders fully believe in the direction and where we're headed, how they communicate it, how they energize people, and how they really ensure that the company is all bought into that vision, that's where conviction comes in. And then, of course, together it equates to that, commitment that you talked about, because that really drives that commitment and sustains execution. So I think it's a matter, and it's not a one and done either, right, Chuck? I mean, it's not like you did a kickoff, you delivered the message, and now we're done. It has to be continuous. It has to really become part of every operational rhythm, like that topic on customer experience. It really needs to be a discussion point. And that is also something that we're, starting to do now, where CX is really part of operational rhythms across key areas of the business. we've got key metrics. We want these areas of businesses to take on OKRs, targets, right? And then really drive that operational rigor to move the needle on those metrics.
Your 2x2 framework is a great visual. And you said the first place you start is high impact, low effort. Where do you go next after you've done that? Do you go high impact, high effort, or do you go low impact, low effort? That would be easy wins.
I mean, at some point, Chuck, I think, as you're building out the strategy and looking across 2 to 3 years, you must get to a point where in the initial phases of execution, once you have delivered some quick wins, you must start those long-term initiatives in parallel with continuous delivery of quick wins. I'll give you an example. Big fan of shopping. I get timely deliveries, and every time you get that box, it's an amazing feeling, isn't it? And that feeling needs to sustain. You got to renew that feeling. You got to water the plant on a continuous basis. And so you can't front load all of the quick wins. You really have to kind of space it out across the roadmap. But at some point, hopefully early enough, because that's where it's a true test of conviction again, right? Like, do you have the right sponsorship in place? Is there enough belief that once you've got the quick wins and you've delivered directionally that, yeah, this is the direction we need to head into, you got to start those long-term initiatives, which do require a bit more investment, a bit more resources. Maybe these are 2 to 3 year, maybe even longer. The sooner you start, the better. So it's hard for me to say if there is a fixed way of going across those 4 quadrants, right? There really isn't. There's so many ingredients that would drive that decision making. What's happening in the market? What's happening in the company? Whereas, are our objectives shifting, et cetera, et cetera. And we're living in a time of agility, so you just have to continue shifting, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's talk about the internal side of friction. Where have you seen internal friction mirror customer friction, and how do you solve both at once?
We've been looking at employee experience, and it's such a vast space. And we're pretty clear, and when I say we, I'm talking about the customer experience team and the transformation team specifically. We're very clear that we are looking at employee experience in the context of CX. Because if you want to go and fix employee experience at any company or improve it, there is a lot you can do. And so for us, it was really critical that we're clear about scope and outcome. What is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the outcome we're trying to drive? And really make sure that we stay loyal to that outcome. And so as we're thinking about employee experience, the mission here is not necessarily the bigger goal of improving employee experience, et cetera. I think Microsoft being a leader in employee experience, according to multiple sources, definitely speaks to that. I think our mission here really is around how do we look at employee journeys, especially for employees who are customer facing, identify friction points for areas where it really prevents them from delivering outcomes for customers. And then eliminating those friction points, because that truly enables the dual outcome, Chuck, that you're talking about, right? Like, it improves employee experience, but it also enables and empowers them to deliver outcomes for customers faster, more efficiently, etc. So we're literally going in and trying to figure out what are those opportunities where we've got that dual outcome so we can go fix that. And of course, there are examples. I mean, Microsoft has been around for so long. As any enterprise global company, we're in a place where there are a lot of legacy processes. It takes a long time. for employees to go through those processes, even though they might be trying to do something simple. Now, of course, the process in place is for a good reason, you know, legal, compliance, so on and so forth. And plus, we're a huge matrix organization, which really requires multiple teams to be involved sometimes in one decision. Extremely important. But then we look at, the opportunity here is how do we use AI again to simplify the workflows, making them faster, more efficient where possible, using agentic AI to drive a lot of the automation, using a hybrid model where needed, where we use a combination of agentic AI and the human touch to really make sure things are progressing in the right direction to mitigate risk. And then bringing those pieces together to really refine and reimagine that journey. And ultimately, what that does is employees are happier because now they can get their work done faster with less effort. Things like account planning, things like customer success planning, etc. Those are some really, low-hanging fruit, quick wins that we're starting to look at. If we can make that easier for employees, it's going to help them deliver better outcomes for our customers.
So what metrics or behaviors signal that the transformation effort's actually working inside the company?
Yeah, when you think about transformation, it takes me back to the measurement framework, right? Having clarity on what are the metrics per area of business that we really want to move the needle on is critical, even before the transformation begins. So we've done a lot of work where we are actually looking at the company, the area of businesses, and kind of thinking about what is the right customer experience metric based on the responsibility of that specific area that we can perhaps go and embed as an OKR for that organization and help them build out that strategy and that change to move the needle on that metric. And how do you really see if transformation is working? It becomes a bit easier then, right, Chuck? Because once you have clarity on here is the metric that you want to move the needle on, then defining success becomes easier. So I'll give you an example. If we think about the sales and success organization, we talked about employee journeys, we talked about account planning, etc. If we just go back to that example, if we're able to enable the teams, the account teams, to build a stronger account plan that is relevant and personalized to the customer that they serve. And you can actually achieve that using AI to do research, using AI to bring, disparate sources of data together, which helps you understand the customer better. You can use AI and agentic capabilities to really make sure that previous engagements that you've had with the customer, how do you consolidate that data? How do you summarize it so historically, what did the engagement look like so far? What did the journey look like so far? And that's towards the early stage of creating that account plan. But then the actual development of that plan as far as, mundane work and tactical work, putting all of the information together, converting, text from different formats into one, et cetera, creating summaries. If we can actually look at all of those components and refine it, the account team is going to have a better understanding of the customer business objectives. And then on top of that, if we can use AI to provide recommendations, to provide prescriptive next steps based on patterns across numerous other customers from the same industry. That's a huge advantage because now what you're looking at is enabling knowledge sharing at scale. You've got knowledge and experience sitting across hundreds of employees that are part of account teams located globally. And what if we have a way of using AI and machine learning to really tap into that knowledge and experience and democratize it? So I think, applying that, enabling the account team, and now they're in a much better position to go have that conversation with the customer. And when the customer really sees that Microsoft hears me, understands my business, then of course the third part of the equation, which is around being a business partner, becomes a little easier. And you'll see it in metrics, because then you will see customer feedback from an anecdotal perspective, so you know that the transformation is moving in the right direction. And then you'll also see other metrics, which I talked about earlier, like that customer our hypothesis again is retention, loyalty. One thing I would say, Chuck, I think measuring intention is really critical here. And I think that's one of the things that we are doing that may be a bit unique. And what I mean by measuring intention is, when we think about the customer experience flywheel, and as we think about, the different areas where you deliver good experience and it will drive retention, loyalty, etc., I think there is a stage in the middle where first thing that happens is we should ignite intention in the customer organization. And how do you measure intention? There should be signals. And those signals can include various different things, right? If a customer is interested in further deepening or expanding the engagement, you'll see it. You'll see those customers on our website learning about our portfolio. You'll see those customers increase their knowledge by training their employees on the platform and the solution. You'll see those customers attend more events, et cetera, et cetera. And then, measuring that and having a very clear plan on how do you convert intentions to action. Because then the action is for them to actually deepen the engagement, consume a larger portion of the portfolio. Instead of just using one solution, use more solutions. And then, of course, that converts to even deeper partnership, like doing joint PR with us, recommending more customers to choose our platform, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, a combination of all of those metrics based on stage can really help ensure that you're measuring, is the transformation working? Are we working on the right things or not?
So Zehra, what's one widely held belief about friction or creating frictionless experiences that you fundamentally disagree with, that you think people get wrong?
I'd like to answer that in the context of AI, if I can. And I think I've heard this a lot, and I know it's not everyone who believes this, but a lot of people still do, that AI will never be empathetic. I think there is a bit of a paradigm shift that's needed when we think about AI, machine learning, and these technologies. I think when we say that AI is never going to be empathetic, it'll never replace humans, I don't think the intention is for it to replace humans. And I think that's where the paradigm shift really needs to take place. I mean, our mission at Microsoft is to empower every person in every organization to achieve more. AI is a means to an end in achieving that mission. It really enables all of us and companies and small businesses to be able to do and achieve the outcomes they intend to achieve by just using this as one more tool in their toolbox. Now, is empathy a critical component, feature, aspect of AI that must be improved? Absolutely. Because when we think about personalized, human-centric experiences, it's important that there is a level of intelligence and empathy in those models where you're able to communicate with them quickly, efficiently. But I think that comparison, at least personally to me, has always taken me aback, if you will. I mean, I just don't know if we should even compare. It's a totally different outcome we're trying to drive.
Well, this has been a great conversation. How can listeners find and connect with you, Zehra?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on X. So, feel free to give me a shout. I'd love to connect and see how I can help.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Frictionless Experience. We appreciate you being part of the journey. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend or colleague if helpful. And you can always connect with Nick and I on LinkedIn. I am at Chuck Moxley, and Nick is
at in Paladino.